The simplest way to describe how good of a player Andrew Toney was is through his peers. Charles Barkley on more than one occasion has stated that Toney is the best player he's ever played with, while Larry Bird on the other hand said Toney was one of the best guys he's ever played against, especially in the clutch moments. Andrew Toney was an all-star because of his ability to score whenever, wherever, on whoever he wanted, with his fearless style of play on winning teams in clutch moments, especially against the Boston Celtics. This is a look back on Andrew Toney's career. Andrew Toney would grow up in Birmingham, Alabama, playing high school basketball at Glenn, where he would showcase his talents, getting noticed by some schools in the area, but not highly recruited. As a result, Andrew Toney would decide to go to Southwestern Louisiana, nowadays the University of Louisiana Lafayette, for college, where he would lead the team as soon as he stepped onto the campus from freshman to senior year. And by Toney's senior year, he was a force to be reckoned with, averaging 26.1 points, 4.6 assists, and 3.8 rebounds a night, helping him earn his second Southland Player of the Year award and drawing the attention of the NBA. In the 1980 NBA draft, the 76ers would draft Andrew Toney with the 8th overall pick. Now, Toney wasn't joining no ordinary lottery team though, since the pick was acquired in a trade with the Pacers several years ago, and the 76ers had just come off an NBA Finals loss to the Lakers. Leading the way for Philadelphia was Julius Erving, Daryl Dawkins, and Doug Collins when healthy. On top of this, having the perfect sixth man in Bobby Jones and a young Maurice Cheeks that was developing and ever improving. With such a talented team, Andrew Toney would find himself splitting time between starting and coming off of the bench his rookie year, playing his role quite well, averaging 12.9 points and 3.6 assists a night, helping see the 76ers go 62-20, getting a 3 seed for the playoffs. In round 1, the Philadelphia 76ers would sweep the Billy Knight-led Pacers, instantly getting a second round matchup against the 2-seeded Bucks. Now the Bucks were led by Marcus Johnson, Sidney Moncrief, Junior Bridgman, and Bob Lanier. And with so much talent on both teams, every game would alternate on who was winning, creating a Game 7 matchup with big performances from Johnson and Irving along the way. In Game 7, it would go exactly like the rest of the series had so far, and it would be a tight game, where Caldwell Jones would make 2 late free throws to help Philadelphia just over the top with a 99-98 victory, getting an Eastern Conference Finals matchup against their rivals in the Boston Celtics. Now, the Celtics would be led by Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Tiny Archibald, Cedric Maxwell, and Kevin McHale. Andrew Toney would come ready to play this series, in particular in Game 2 when he scored 35 points, starting to help grow his legacy against Boston, where he would help the 76ers jump out to a 3-1 lead on the Boston Celtics after several close games. The 76ers only needed one more win to advance, but would fall just short in the next 3 games, losing Game 5 by 2 points, Game 6 by 2 points, and Game 7 by 1, as the 76ers failed to get the last second shot off. This would go down for most as one of the best playoff series of all time, with 5 of the games being decided by 2 points or less, and had a great comeback by the Celtics. Against the Celtics this series, Andrew Toney would average 19.1 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 3 assists. The Celtics would go on to win the NBA championship after defeating the 76ers. Entering the next season, the 76ers were largely the same team, but Collins had retired with injury problems, helping set up an opportunity for more touches for Toney. Andrew Toney would be the 6th man this entire year, where he would provide instant offense off the bench for the Sixers, where he would score 16.5 points a night to go with 3.7 assists. Meanwhile, the 76ers were doing similar to the prior year, but Dawkins was missing a fair amount of time with injury, seeing the 76ers record be just slightly worse this year than the year prior, going 58-24, getting a 3 seed. Where in round 1, the Philadelphia 76ers would take care of business again, sweeping the Hawks led by Dan Roundfield, Eddie Johnson, and John Drew. Now in round 2, the 76ers again would find themselves facing the Milwaukee Bucks. But this go-around would be different, with an improved Toney from the year prior, playing the perfect second option to Julius Erving, helping the 76ers defeat the Bucks in 6 games. In the Eastern Conference Finals, awaiting the 76ers were none other than the Boston Celtics again. Now the series would start off with the 76ers absolutely getting destroyed in Game 1 in what most remembered as the Mother's Day Massacre. But the 76ers would respond by winning the next 3 games in a row, going up 3-1 in large parts due to Toney's play, where he would score 30 points in Game 2 and 39 points in Game 4. Now with the 76ers up 3-1 in the series, they would begin to crumble again, losing the next 2 games, creating a Game 7 at the Boston. Many critics began to think that the 76ers would never be able to get past the Celtics and the series was now over, but Andrew Toney would think otherwise. Toney would do what he does best in playing great against the Celtics, scoring 34 points in Game 7, leading the 76ers to the NBA Finals, all the while forever gaining the legacy against the Celtics and the nickname as the Boston Strangler for his improved play against them always. In the NBA Finals, the 76ers would find themselves matching up against the Los Angeles Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, Norm Nixon, Jamal Wilkes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Cooper, and Bob McAdoo. Against the Lakers, Andrew Toney would continue his strong form with being the leading scorer in 3 separate games, but it would ultimately not be enough as the Lakers had too many threats for the 76ers to deal with, resulting in the Lakers winning the NBA championship in 6 games. Andrew Toney over the postseason run would average 21.8 points, 4.9 assists. Entering the offseason, the Philadelphia 76ers knew they needed one extra piece to put them over the top, so they went out and got the best player available, an MVP and Hall of Famer, Moses Malone, in a sign-and-trade. As a result, the 76ers would trade away Daryl Dawkins, but all the moves improved the 76ers as a whole, and their expectations were now championship or bust. Andrew Toney would fit perfectly as the third option to Malone and Irving, increasing his numbers starting alongside them to 19.7 points and 4.5 assists a game, helping earn himself his very first All-Star appearance. Toney alongside Malone and Irving would help the 76ers improve upon last year, going 65-17, getting the number 1 seed. And after getting a bye the first round, the 76ers would face the New York Knicks, led by Bernard King, and the Knicks would find themselves having absolutely zero answers for Moses Malone, resulting in the 76ers sweeping the Knicks. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the 76ers would be meeting the same Bucks team in the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row. In this series, Andrew Toney would do what he did when it mattered most, and stepped up his play, becoming a leading scorer and helping the 76ers handle the Bucks in 5 games. Awaiting the 76ers in the NBA Finals was the Los Angeles Lakers again. Now this time the 76ers would not be stopped, with Moses Malone dominating the Lakers, with Toney and Irving backing him up well as the second and third option, and the 76ers would stun the Lakers in this series, sweeping them all together, resulting in the 76ers and Andrew Toney becoming NBA champions and arguably going down as one of the most dominant postseason runs of all time, only losing 1 game along the way to the NBA title. This championship run, Andrew Toney would average 18.8 points and 4.6 assists a night. Next season would roll around and the 76ers would largely return the same team as the year prior, and to no surprise, Andrew Toney would only improve upon his game and his numbers up to 20.4 points and 4.8 assists, helping see himself become an all-star again. Now, despite personal growth and success, the 76ers as a whole seem to be going through the classic championship hangover this season, going 52-30, getting a 3 seed in a matchup against the Nets in round 1. The Nets were led by Buck Williams, Otis Birdsong, Michael Ray Richardson, and former teammate and 76er Daryl Dawkins. In the best-of-5 series, the Nets would stun the 76ers in the first 2 games at Philadelphia, going up 2-0, before the 76ers would wake up and respond by winning 2 on the road, creating a do-or-die Game 5. In Game 5, the 76ers would find themselves up 7 points with roughly 7 minutes to go in the game, but the Nets would rally behind Michael Ray Richardson's play along with the uncharacteristic turnovers by the 76ers. The Nets would end up winning the game 101-98, sending the defending champs home in round 1 to the shock of the sports world. Andrew Toney over the Nets series would average 20.6 points and 3.8 assists. And as the offseason came around, the 76ers would strengthen their core further when they would draft Charles Barkley with the 5th overall pick in the NBA draft, creating an even tougher, yet aging 76ers team. On top of this, the 76ers would lock down Andrew Toney with a new contract long-term. However, though, things for Toney this season started to take a downward spiral. During the year, Toney began to experience pain in his feet, but the team doctors couldn't seem to find the source of his pain. Owner Harold Katz and other parts of management wanted him to play and push through the pain, arguing Toney was being dramatic now that he got paid. And at one point he was put on the injured reserve list this season for bad attitude, and later was stated saying he was ordered to play or he'd be suspended, creating a rather ugly public disagreement. Despite all the growing pain that Toney was having and all the disagreements, he would still play due to team's encouragement in 70 games this season, averaging similar numbers to when healthy, but slightly dropped off to 17.8 points and 5.2 assists, where he would help the 76ers go 58-24, getting a 3 seed. In round 1, the 76ers would face the Washington Bullets, led by Jeff Rowland and Gus Williams and Jeff Malone. And the 76ers would end up overpowering the Bullets, winning in 4 games, with Toney having a big game 2 where he would score 31 points. In round 2, the 76ers would face the Bucks, who look slightly different this time though, with Terry Cummings, Sidney Moncrief, and Paul Pressey leading the way. Now despite the changes from the Bucks, the results would ultimately be the same, with the 76ers sweeping them despite big performances from Cummings. Meeting the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals were the Boston Celtics, who had improved since their last playoff matchup with the addition of Dennis Johnson. And the 76ers would find themselves struggling, with Parrish being able to somewhat slow down Moses Malone this series, helping the Celtics take a 3-0 lead before Boston would finish the 76ers off late in Game 5 with a steal by Bird on Andrew Toney. This postseason, Andrew Toney would average 16.8 points and 5.1 assists. Entering next season, the pain for Andrew Toney only continued to grow while wearing a cast all off-season, and early into the year, soon it would be figured out why by a non-team doctor at Penn University. The doctor had found that he had a stress fracture of the tarsal navicular bone in his right foot, and after getting a proper cast for his injuries, the doctors decided to check his other leg to compare it, only to find out he had the same exact stress fracture in his left leg as his right. And it does not even end there. It was later found that he had bone spurs in both of his ankles. Andrew Toney had literally given his body up for the team when 76ers ownership and management thought there was no injury whatsoever and he was being dramatic about it. Andrew Toney on the season, as a result, would only play in 6 games, averaging 4.2 points and 2 assists. With missing Toney, the 76ers would still go 54-28, getting the 3 seed again, getting a matchup for the second year in a row against the Bullets. This postseason, however, Moses Malone would also be out with an injury like Toney, making the series against the Bullets a little more difficult, but Charles Barkley was beginning to really come into his own and would help the 76ers get past the Bullets. In round 2, the 76ers would get the Bucks, who were the favorites this go-around, but shortly into the series, Moncrief would go out with an injury, making the series a little more interesting, and it would go to a Game 7 where it would be close late when Milwaukee would take a lead by 1 with a goaltending by Barkley late. But the 76ers still had a chance to win it with time remaining, but Dr. J would ultimately end up missing the shot, and after all these years, the Bucks had defeated the 76ers in the NBA playoffs. In the offseason, the 76ers would trade away an aging but still effective Moses Malone for Jeff Rowland and Cliff Robinson, helping signal the decline of the 76ers. However, next season, Toney would attempt to make a return to play, but could never fully stay healthy, with his injuries still causing him pain and swelling, playing in only 52 games, averaging 10.6 points and 3.6 assists a game off the bench. The 76ers would finish the season going 45-37, still being a playoff team due to Charles Barkley's play. In round 1, the 76ers would be facing the Bucks again, but as the 76ers were declining, the Bucks were only getting better with the addition of Jack Sigma and the emergence of Ricky Pierce. Now the series would still be close, but the 76ers would ultimately run out of steam in Game 5, going home 3-2. In this series, Andrew Toney would average 5.6 points and 5.4 assists. After the season was over, Julius Erving would retire, diminishing the chances for the Philadelphia 76ers to really compete. And next season for Toney and the 76ers would be a difficult one altogether. Andrew Toney would go on to play in 29 games with injuries still causing him issues, and on the season Toney would only average 7.3 points and 3.7 assists, where the 76ers would go 36-46, missing the playoffs for the first time in Toney's career. After the season was over, Andrew Toney decided to retire, with injuries being too much for him to continue to play through. In 8 seasons in the NBA, Andrew Toney averaged 15.9 points, 2.2 rebounds, and 4.2 assists. Toney may go down as a big what if had the injuries been diagnosed properly sooner, or maybe not occurred at all, and in my opinion, he could have potentially gone down as a Hall of Famer. But the time he did have on the court, he excelled, garnering the respect of his peers, earning 2 All-Star appearances and winning the NBA title, while truly laying it all out on the line for his team. Thank you, Andrew Toney, for playing through the pain. Thanks for watching this video on Andrew Toney's career. If you have any recommendations on who I should do next, please leave a comment down below and I may or may not decide to do them. Thanks again for watching this video. This has been Skid Denver.